Hi guys, and welcome back. Today is a very exciting day. If you're watching when this goes live, it's when my Kickstarter also goes live. So my Silver Tears Kickstarter is up. It's available. There is a link in the description if you wanted to go check it out, if you wanted to back it or just look at it, look at all the little pretty graphics that I made for it. I love the first day of a Kickstarter. It is so intense. It is so nerve-wracking thinking about, did I do it the best that I could? Were there things that I had a blind spot for, pieces of the artwork that I could have done better, all sorts of emotions and thoughts. But overall, it just feels so exciting and rewarding to be able to take months of work, put it all together, and finally send it off and to its end goal. So I'm very excited, very emotional about this. This is actually, I should look it up exactly how many, but it's either the 6th or the 7th Kickstarter that I've ran. So every time it's always so intense and stressful. But let's talk about this piece that I'm working on. So this piece is the cover for the book that's part of the Kickstarter. So there's going to be an art book that has all 100 of the tiny originals that I created all bound together. So the book is called Silver Tears. This is the cover. I cannot believe how much I loved the process of painting this piece. I'm thinking through ways that I can take some of the things that I learned from this process so that I can use them in future pieces. But overall, what I did was I took the process that I used for my tiny originals. So those were 2x2 inch square originals. I took that and I just blew it up. I made it much bigger. So this is actually a 10x10 original. And very small side note, this original is available as one of the tiers over on the Kickstarter. So if you wanted to give her a home, there's a link again to that same Kickstarter that'll take you over there and you can check out all of the reward tiers. But yeah, I just took the same tools, the same process, and made it much bigger. I knew that I definitely wanted to do that because I always prefer to have my covers for the books that I do to match the interior artwork. So if the interior is, say, black and white and all ink, then I want the cover to reflect that. I want it to be a very holistic experience when you're looking at the book. And if it's going to be color on the inside, I want color on the outside, all that. I want it to feel like you know what you're going to get yourself into when you're looking at the cover. And that's what I knew that I had to do for this one. I was a little unsure on exactly how it was going to come together because the tools that I use work very, very well for tiny pieces. So I used a mechanical pencil for like the line work kind of phase of the piece. And then I used just ink washes. And ink washes I'm very, very familiar with, but using pencil in a final form, I am not at all. Now I am because I've done a ton of tiny originals with that, but it's an implementation that I've never really delved into and explored well. So I wasn't sure how well I would be able to effectively use it for a much bigger piece like this. And I loved it. I really loved the process. I loved how controlled using the pencil was to achieve the line work that I wanted. It was so much more gentle on my hand than using like a micron. I find that I use a lot of pressure when I'm using my ink pens, and there's a lot more tension in my hand as I'm all like tense trying to get the line to be very precise and perfect. But with the pencils, I found that I could hold it with a much gentler hand. I was able to build up lines in more passes so that it became much more of a building up process rather than a one attempt and it's got to be right. And it just felt so much more meditative. It kept me very present and enjoying the process. It was just so much fun to work on this, and working on it so much larger than all of the other tiny originals that I've done. It allowed me to put in a lot more details, to be very precise with the details that I was putting into this. It was a dream piece to work on. I loved it. And I really love working in grayscale and with ink washes. I've talked about that plenty in past videos surrounding this project, as well as lots of other black and white projects that I've done. But there's something that happens when you strip away different different things that can make your pieces more complex, but also more distracting. And being able to just focus on this one jar of ink and a couple of ink washes that I mixed up, it allows me to get really focused in on the piece and how it's actually coming together. I find that it makes the process much more enjoyable for me, and I loved that. So I don't know. I don't know how, like, moving forward, I want to take some of these things. One of the things that I'm thinking about is, like, how can I incorporate that pencil work quality for the line work into future pieces? Because it is very black and monochromatic. So when I'm using other colors, it doesn't always mingle well, I think. I've never really tried it with pencil before, so I need to see if the subtlety of a less stark black, more of a gray, if that's something that will blend better with colors. Say if I were using colored ink or watercolors, I don't know. Or I could be using potentially colored pencils. Colored pencils that have a harder lead, I think, would work better for this kind of process. I don't know, but what I will say is that using pencil for the line work, I loved that so much more. I was really just, I don't know, like I can't stress how much more I loved working on this piece. I loved it. I loved the outcome. It was really exciting to be able to work on a piece and feel like I'm getting closer to understanding what things I really need out of a piece to make it feel really good. And I will say one of the big benefits to working on a piece that's monochromatic is I could just touch wherever I wanted throughout the entire piece. I always felt like I could tweak and shift anything that was going on. When I'm working on watercolors and I have a lot of different colors going on, if I want to tweak something, I need to remix those colors and then make sure that I'm color swatching so that I have the correct blend, which none of those things are bad things. They're not things that I hate, but it is nice to get into a flow where I could hop around and see things that could be adapted or shifted or changed or improved and do it immediately. It was very instant gratification throughout the entire process. So I did find that I was hopping around a lot more than I usually do. When I'm working on my watercolors, I tend to do one step at a time and complete it, and then I move on. And that's very helpful to be able to see the structure of the piece come together quickly. I like working like that, but it is also fun to be able to work in a slightly different way, to shake things up, make things a little bit fresh and different. And yeah, that helped a lot to be able to work on her eye and refine some of those areas, and then hop over to the hair or deepen a shadow under her chin, and just keep on working throughout the piece as it just refined itself and came together. And working on the little details in this piece, that was game changer. I don't put those kind of details in my piece enough. So like the lace on her clothes and some of the detailing in the moth wings, that was just so much fun to do. I need to add that more into my pieces, being able to just hyper focus on watching these little lines come together to create a texture, to create this complex looking image. It was just so much fun that I have been missing out on. I realize I've really been missing out on thinking through how can I add more that can add more visual interest, but also interest for me as I'm painting it. So this lace area, I loved watching these little lines that I was creating, and many of them were not perfect. And in that moment, it would be frustrating. And then I would pack up like an inch even, and then it just camouflaged away. It all came together, and it was no longer a single incorrect line. It was just a bunch of lines that came together to create the illusion of lace. And I loved that. I loved it. So I am definitely going to be painting more lace in the future, more tiny details. I'm excited. I'm really excited for that. And one of the final steps that went into this piece was just adding some little pops of highlight. I tried to preserve the highlight as much as I could throughout this piece, but there were a few little errors, little drops of ink that ended up on it, as well as like highlights in her eyes that I wanted to add, and some brighter, sharper highlights to like her lip. And when I do that on my watercolor papers, especially when I'm working with my monochromatic pieces like this, I like to mix a warmer white so that it actually matches the paper white. And I do that with my acrylic gouache, and I take my white, and then I think it's like a yellow ochre, and I mix just a touch of that in, and then I color match it to the paper, which I actually love doing that. That's a fun little like challenge at the end, is just to get that right mixture and then color match it until it's exact. And it actually is almost almost exact. So I'm really happy with that, but I get it as close as I can. And then I just go in and I add in these little tiny dots and hits of brightness. So I struggle a decent amount. And I think that probably many artists do with overworking things. That's where we go in and we keep fussing with something because it doesn't feel quite perfect or like it could be even better. And then we take it past its best point and it starts going downhill the more you touch it. I do that often. I often think that something's just not quite right and it needs fussing with. And for the most part, this piece, luckily, I feel like I did not overwork. I was able to like get to the point as quickly as possible. But the one area that did just start to step into that realm was the eye, the iris. I think the biggest problem, and I think the problem always for me, is if I don't have a super clear end goal, sometimes I kind of like fish around on the actual painting with where it needs to go, and then I'll change my mind and try to shift it. But if it's gone through 4 different iterations trying to get to that final product, it's going to look muddy and overworked. And the eye was just starting to get there. And that's when like, I'm very grateful. I don't know where it came from, but my brain switched and told me that I have gone just far enough. It looks good. If I keep going, it will look worse. And I stepped away and I stopped, and I am so grateful that I did. It was just like right on the edge there. Yeah, it was just a good reminder again that when I have a clear plan, it usually goes better. When I don't know exactly what's going to happen and I just kind of feel it out as I work on it, there's more chance for it to go awry. And to be honest, I don't want to cut that out completely. I really enjoy the experimental process of creating art. I find that can open up so many new things. But I do think that when I want a piece to be really precise and clean, I need to know exactly what's happening. It's not going to turn out good on accident for me, at least. So anyways, that was a good reminder that I need to pay attention to not overworking things, because I'm always happier if I stop before I get to that point. But to wrap back around, I am so grateful for anyone who will support the Kickstarter, who goes and looks at it. I'm so grateful. I put so much of myself into this project. It was a really meditative thing to work on, and I tried to put so much meaning and my own emotion into each and every piece. So it feels really good to put it out into the world, and I hope that it resonates with some of you. Again, there's that link in the description that'll take you over there if you want to check it out, if you wanted to back it. But we can do a really quick rundown on some of the tiers and the add-ons. So I tried to keep the tiers very clean and basic. So the first tier is just a book of silver tiers, and that's a book that has all 100 of the tiny originals. And then this piece that I worked on today, that's the cover of that book. And then the next tier up is 1 book and 1 random original from that collection of 100 originals. So you get to have a little 2x2 inch original that's sent to you, and it's a little surprise in the mail. I really am excited about this tier because this is my opportunity to send out these little moments of artwork out to people. I think it's really fun. I love tiny artwork. And then the next tier up is the tier that has this original in it, plus a tiny mini original and one of the books. And then the tier above that is an even bigger original that's actually the artwork for a tote bag that I'll have available as an add-on. So yes, that top tier gets everything. It gets a mini original and a book, but then any of those tiers you can add on one of the tote bags, and you will be able to go see the artwork right now over on the Kickstarter if you wanted to go see that, but I'll have a video of me painting it for next week. But anyways, there's a tote bag that you can add. There's also a mini print set that you can add as well, and a few other items that anyone can add on to their base reward tier. I'm just really pleased to be putting it out there. I know I keep saying I'm pleased and I'm excited, but it's true. It's a good day being able to take your artwork, take it out of the studio and out of my brain, and then put it into the world in some way, in some form. So thank you guys so much for your support, for checking that out. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next week with another video. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you then.